The payments, a new beginning. We have a fantastic panel with me today. Let me introduce my panelists. First, we have Denelle Dixon. Now, Denelle is the CEO of Stella Foundation. She was the COO of Mozilla before that. Stella, of course, is an open source platform. It's a fantastic world out there. She will introduce to us how Stella works. So we have a fantastic panel today. They will share with us perspectives on cross-border payments, how the market landscape will likely evolve in the next 3 to 5 years, and how do we ensure competition in this digital world? What is the role of standards and the interoperability to ensure there is sufficient competition in this heightened competitive age for cross-border payments? And thirdly, what is the role for public-private partnerships in ensuring that we have the best outcome, both in terms of efficiency and stability of cross-border payments? Let me invite Denelle first to share with us your view. How do you see the cross-border payment markets evolve in the next 3 to 5 years? So what do you think are the factors that would contribute to success to companies like yourself? Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. It's such a privilege to be here. I think that the answer to that question, particularly the 3 to 5 years and what this looks like in 3 to 5 years, heavily depends on 3 things. I think you have to first consider how good we are at developing easy use cases for developers to be able to develop on top of our open source decentralized network and others that are out there. So that's the first issue. The second one is how much we focus on the use cases themselves, so solving real user problems versus focusing on the technology. And then the third area is really this interoperability point and how good we are at enhancing the existing financial infrastructure that's out there versus trying to supplant it. So I think that it depends, like how we approach each of these 3 areas. I hope that we continue to approach it from a use case piece versus looking at just trying to enhance this technology that's out there. Because if we are really trying to solve user problems and we do that with ease of use in mind, with looking at user interfaces and making sure that we're making them simple, and if we consistently focus on this notion of standards and interoperability, we are going to get to the place where if we do this right, we'll get to the solution in 3 to 5 years that looks like a reduction in friction for the end user and for developers that are developing on these platforms. We'll get to cost efficiency that makes it so that we actually see a decrease in the cost for the end users with respect to these cross-border payments. And we will get to the place of enhanced competition and innovation. And I think that this is all good for the end user, because I think if we focus on each of these areas and we really, really try to make this a competitive platform that allows for awesome innovation, this is what we saw in the early days of the web, when we saw interesting and different use cases that came to light because there was this focus on standards and innovation and competition. And the winner ultimately in that is the end user. So I look forward to 3 to 5 years out there, and I hope that we've done all of these things and that we see this really vibrant marketplace out there of ideas, and we see the cost efficiency that I think that we should see with respect to these pieces.
Thank you, Denelle. I will come back with a couple of follow-up questions. How do you actually scale it up? And how do you ensure that, if others, for example, Mastercard has launched a platform, as I understand it, for central banks to test their CBDCs on their platform. Now, for a central bank out there, how do they decide? If I test on Stella network, would that work also on the Mastercard network? So these are the issues from a practical point of view would be important for the policymakers to understand. Maybe we can start from Denelle, then maybe swing back to Rory as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dong. This is such a great question, and it's one of the things that actually hits back to the question that you asked about Libra. I think that the focus that we have on open, decentralized, permissionless networks, which is what Stellar is, and which is what we focus on building, and we try to actually integrate with the incumbents, like with respect to Mastercard, for example. We have to make it really simple, for especially when it's a new technology and you're actually trying to integrate with these different stacks that exist out there. You have to make the on-ramp to the network very simple. And that's where the interoperability and the standards come into play. And from just all of my years of focusing on standards, and this is what we did exceptionally well at the very beginning of the web, and when we focused on the internet technology, there was a massive focus on standards and trying to build this ecosystem that anyone could join if they chose to. And all they needed was to understand like how to get onto the internet, and then they could build their own website, or they could build other engagements and opportunities with end users. That's what we're trying to do here in what we call the Internet for Payments. So it's the same idea. An open permissionless network is important. And making sure that network is easy to interoperate with, which is what we try to do and strive to do here at SDF and on Stellar, but lots of entities out there are trying to do the same thing. This is what creates the opportunity for there not to be a single incumbent, which I think is hugely important in this space. Because we've seen years later, 20 years later with respect to the web, what happens when certain players take over and own all of the full stack. It makes it very hard for new ideas and innovation to come up. And so the idea is if we could continue in this space to make it simple and to create that interoperability and that focus on standards, then we actually can continue the notion of this innovation, which is crucially important to success here. So I think if you think about get the on-ramps to Stellar, for example, making it easy for issuing tokens on and issuing value on Stellar is very simple. It takes one line of code to be able to issue whatever token you feel like is important for your business. There are gold tokens, there are silver tokens, there are USD tokens, there are fiat-backed tokens that exist that I think are super useful and very similar to what CBDCs can be. In fact, you could see a central bank issue a CBDC and then have the private sector and these these entities out there that are exceptionally good at having that consumer focus. These fiat-backed entities, they could actually be the glue for the consumer base and the CBDCs to be issued and used on a variety of different networks that are out there. So I think in all of the years that I spent focusing on how to build standards, it takes that you can show the simplicity of it, and then you come together and you really try not to be the winner take all model. You really try to understand that in this model, the winners are, again, the ultimate either developers or the end users who are focused on really trying to achieve these cross-border transactions. And you really try to use that glue of making it simple and using standards to get there.
Thank you, Rory. I think this is a fantastic conversation. Unfortunately, we are almost up in terms of the time allocated to this panel. So let me give each panelist maybe less than a minute for you to summarize and deliver the message, the key message you want to audience to take away from this panel. Let me go to Denelle first.
Thank you so much. There's so much to say on this, but I'll just say two things that I think are really important. The discussion that was just had a few moments ago about not likening this to the internet and being careful of permissionless networks, we have to remember that you're comparing this to Libra, which is a very different thing than what we're trying to focus on. Permissionless networks are the infrastructure layer that allows entities to build on top of them and to innovate and to create awesome ideas and to create products that are going to solve these problems that folks have all over the world, and they're going to solve financial inclusion because you can do it on your phone. You can make it so that people don't have to have bank accounts, and you can do it in 3 to 5 seconds. The comparison with the internet is that infrastructure layer, that technology layer. The notion that the AML and all of the different regulations need to apply here is absolutely agreed upon. And those financial institutions that touch fiat on the edges are the ones that are regulated by all of the different geographies. So we cannot forget that is the important piece of this. That is what creates the interoperability. That is what makes it so that this all works seamlessly. That is what makes it so that I could send Rene a payment to Germany and to do that in 3 to 5 seconds and to still use the existing financial infrastructure, but to use these new rails, which make it faster, seamless, and usable for the developers and the end users. So that's just an important point I want everyone to know. Governments are exceptionally good at regulating fiat. We still want them to. Thank you.
Thank you, Denelle.